Okay, so today we are going to discuss about PaaS component. Like I said earlier, in cloud we have three services like IaaS, infrastructure as a service, and PaaS, platform as a service, and SaaS, which is software as a service. So the virtual
Okay.
machine, which we have provisioned in our subscription, right? Virtual network or the storage account. So these components which are related to the virtual machine. So that virtual machine is a IaaS component, or we can call it as
Right.
IaaS service, infrastructure
IS.
as a service, where customer will have complete authority on that particular instance on the virtual machine. So he can log into the VM, he can do whatever he wants, he can reboot, he can shut down, he can install any other application on the virtual machine, because IaaS, where customer will have full scope on their own infrastructure. Okay, so the
Okay.
next component is PaaS, which is platform as a service. So the complete platform Microsoft will provide to the customer, and only the application or only the database. So the best example in PaaS or the PaaS component is SQL database, which is Azure SQL database, or Azure SQL data warehouse analysis services. Okay, so these are the components which are best example for PaaS component. Okay, so today
Okay.
we'll discuss about PaaS component, and also we missed one concept in IaaS, which is backup and disaster recovery, how to initiate a backup, because backup plays a major role when you talk about virtual machine. Backup is the basic requirement, or the basic
Yeah.
option which we have to enable on each and every virtual machine, because if something happens on your virtual machine, maybe by installing a software or maybe by installing an application, your virtual machine got completely corrupted. Okay, so in that case, the only option you have to troubleshoot, or you have to investigate what is the reason why my virtual machine is not starting. So the only option, or the backup plan, what we can call is a backup, because if virtual machine is not working, the only option after troubleshooting, if you're unable to troubleshoot that, the only option which you have left is you have to go for a backup, or you have to go and restore your virtual machine. So yesterday at 10 p.m. my virtual machine was running fine. After 10:30 or at 11 o'clock, one user has installed some application that corrupted my virtual machine. So you can restore it. Okay. So the basic concept,
Okay.
or the basic option which we have to enable on each and every virtual machine is backup. Okay,
Okay.
so in Azure also, Microsoft has provided that feature where you can enable backup, okay, and also disaster recovery. I think you're already aware of disaster recovery. So what is the meaning of disaster recovery? If something happens in your data center, so all your virtual
Correct.
machine will goes down, right? So in previous classes we discussed about storage account, right?
Storage.
Like
Right.
GRS, RAGRS, okay, ZRS, LRS.
Data.
So these
Right.
are the
LR.
replication which we discussed in the previous class, right? Okay. So if something happens to your primary location, then still you can access your storage account from the secondary location if you enable the replication of your storage account as RAGRS. Okay. So you can read your data
Okay.
from secondary location, like from central India to South India, or from North India to Central India. So these kind of location where you can replicate to the secondary location,
Correct.
but that
Yes.
will be only for your storage account, right? So in the same way, we have backup and also disaster recovery for virtual machine. Okay, I'll just quickly show you how to enable backup and how to enable disaster recovery. Okay, and then we'll start discussing about PaaS component, how to create a SQL database and SQL data warehouse, and what is the difference between these two components, and why SQL data warehouse is more expensive compared to SQL database. Okay, so you're able to see my screen, right? I think I'm sharing my screen.
Yes. 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 I can see it.
Okay. Okay. So if I say any backup or any disaster recovery or any network component or any storage component, and how to configure alerts for a Microsoft, or sorry, for your virtual machine. So all these features or all these options, you can simply find it out in your virtual machine only. So I'll just go to the dashboard. Currently I'm in Microsoft Azure subscription on the
Correct.
dashboard. So I have to select my virtual machine. Okay. So I
Right.
have to select on which virtual machine I have to enable backup. So we'll do one thing. So we'll just enable on test VM01 only. Okay. So
Okay.
once I select my virtual machine, I can simply scroll this down. Okay. If I go to operation, I can see backup and also disaster recovery. Okay. So backup, I'll just give you a difference, just a brief idea about backup and disaster recovery. So backup, where you will save your backup in the same location. Okay. So current, the location of this virtual machine is West Europe. Okay. So all your backup. Okay, so we can schedule your backup on a daily basis at what time you wanted to back up your virtual machine. So on each and every day, automatically your virtual machine will initiate a backup, and then it will back up, the complete virtual machine will back up to a recovery service vault. So that is a resource which we have to create to enable backup on a virtual machine. That backup will be available only in your primary location, which is West Europe location. Okay, so this
Okay.
will help when you mess up with your virtual machine. You completely messed up with your virtual machine, like you have installed unauthorized application, and that caused your virtual machine and it is unable to boot. If a user made a mistake on this virtual machine, then he can go and restore the virtual machine to a working condition. Okay, but that complete backup and that complete snapshot will be saved in the same location, which is West Europe location. You got it, right? So if something happens to your West Europe data center, maybe due to some network issues or due to some climate issues, your virtual machine will not be available still if you enable backup, because the complete region is down. Okay.
Okay.
Only backup will help when you do something on your virtual machine. Maybe if you are installing some patch, I think you're already aware of Windows patches, right? So each and
Yes, yes.
every second Tuesday of month, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft will release patches. Every second
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday of each and every month, Microsoft
Right.
will release patches. That patches will be
Mm-hmm.
applicable for your operating system, like client operating system, maybe Windows 7, Windows 10, and your server operating system like 2016, 2019. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so these kind of patches will Microsoft will release, and then you can install on your virtual machine. So after installing your patch, if your virtual machine is not working, then the only option, you have to uninstall it. So to uninstall, you have to RDP to that, but RDP is also not working. So the only option, you have to restore it to the working condition. Maybe 2 hours ago my virtual machine was running, so I'll simply go back and I'll restore it. I'll
No,
just find it
IDP,
out what
why
was the last
IDP
restore point.
would not work?
Sorry?
Why IDP would not work? Why IDP would not work? Because,
Maybe
uh,
because
okay.
as per my experience, I'll say one thing. There are few patches actually. That
Uh-huh.
patches will corrupt your RDP tool or maybe your
Okay,
RDP
okay.
port due to some
Uh-huh.
network issues. You won't be able to RDP to the virtual machine.
Okay.
Still, your application will work. See, if
Mm-hmm.
feel that I'm unable to RDP to the virtual machine, so we should not come to a conclusion that my virtual machine is not completely working. You
Mm-hmm.
got it, right? So I'm unable to RDP to the virtual machine, but I have
Mm-hmm.
installed, but I have configured one application on the virtual machine. Still, I can able to access my application, but the RDP will not work.
Okay.
I have
Okay.
seen many cases. I have seen many cases.
Mm-hmm.
Your remote is not working, but still the application which is hosted on that server, that application will work.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reason, the application is working from a different port number, but your RDP is working from 3389 port number.
Correct.
You got it, right? You are unable
Mm-hmm.
to get into the server using 3389, but
Mm-hmm.
users are able to get into the server by using 80 or 8080 port number. Maybe you have
Okay.
configured any port number to your, some X port number to your application. By using that X port number, users are able to get into the server, but as an admin, I'm unable to get into the server using 3389.
Okay.
In backend, server will work. There is no issue with the server. Network is up, everything is up. But the only problem would be I'm unable to RDP to the server. Maybe due to
Okay.
some patch issue, my RDP port got corrupted, or maybe my RDP tool got corrupted, or due to some permission issues, or anything like that. But still, users can get into the server by using some XYZ port number and the application will work fine. There is no issue with the application. So I have seen many cases actually. So in that case, the only option you have to troubleshoot from RDP. So our goal should be like user has to be able to RDP to the virtual machine, because if you wanted to troubleshoot something, you should get into the server, right? So without logging into the server, you cannot troubleshoot. That is the first point.
Right.
Right. So in that case, there are many cases. So, and there is just giving an example. Maybe RDP is not working, or maybe server is rebooting multiple times. Okay, server is booting, not asking you to put your the username and the password. So these kind of issues you may get by installing some unauthorized application. Okay. So
Okay.
in that case, we have to restore it. The only option, we have to restore. Okay, but still, as per the policy or as per the guidelines, each and every virtual machine, your backup has to be enabled. Backup has to be enabled on each and every virtual machine. That is as per the guidelines. That is mandatory.
Okay. Rajesh,
Okay.
like, but
Yeah.
yeah, I have one query. Yeah, I have one query. So, like, thing is, suppose we have virtual machine, we have installed some
Right.
unauthorized software on that machine, and we are facing issue with that virtual machine, like we are not able to connect, we are not able to RDB through that machine. So instead of having or enabling the backup, so can't we delete that virtual machine and we can provision the another virtual machine, new virtual machine? Because although
Uh,
like
hmm.
we do not have any software working, we do not have virtual machine working. Okay, so even though we are not
Hmm.
able to connect to that machine, so we just delete that virtual
Hmm.
machine and we can provision the other one also
Hmm.
instead of taking the backup.
Partially that is correct, I would say, because if you don't have any application which are running on your virtual machine, and if the virtual machine is very new, then you can go ahead and delete, and then you can start from the scratch. It's fine. But let's
Okay.
assume your virtual machine is having some 50 applications, and
Okay.
you have some data on it, and you have some important or confidential files on the virtual machine. So in that case, if you delete, then again you have to start from the scratch. Like you have to configure
Okay.
50 websites or
Right.
50 applications on that, and you have to install 10 application manually from first. It will work
Okay.
if the virtual machine is very new. In a case
Very
that
good.
yesterday you have installed one, you have provisioned one virtual machine, so you started experimenting on that virtual machine. So if something happens, no need to restore, because that virtual machine was created yesterday only. So the best option, like, delete it. Why to waste by troubleshoot? Why to waste the time by troubleshooting on that virtual machine, right? So simply go ahead and delete it and then start from the scratch. If that virtual
Okay.
machine is new, then it's fine. But let's assume that virtual machine is very old, like you have created that virtual machine a year ago. You have some 10 or 15 softwares installed on that virtual machine.
Yes,
So
sir.
if you delete, again, if you start from the scratch, again you have to install all the application from first, right?
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
Got it.
So
Got
it will not help actually. So it will not help.
it.
Your virtual machine is critical. But anyway,
Okay.
backup will be helpful only in a case, maybe in the future, like maybe a couple of months. If there is some issue with your virtual machine, or if a user has installed some, like I said, if your user has installed an application that is creating a problem on that VM, then you have to restore it. The only option, you have to restore it.
Okay.
Because from Azure perspective, we cannot see the console. I would not say it is a disadvantage. It's a security issue only. So we can, the first option would be you have to RDP to the virtual machine, but you cannot see the console. Usually in VMware or in Hyper-V, you can see the console. If you have worked on VMware, so you can simply select your virtual machine, and if you right click on that VM, you can go to console, and then you can log into the virtual machine. If your RDP port is not working, still you can log into that console by using VM console. Because while logging into VM console, 3389 port will not, if it is not working, still you can log in. Because you are not RDPing to the virtual machine. You're simply going to VMware console and you are logging in. So at that point of time, it will helpful. But here in Azure, we won't be able to see the console. The option to log into your VM, you have to RDP to the VM using 3389 port number only. Okay,
Okay.
so let us enable. So before
Mhm.
enabling, we have to create a recovery service vault. Okay, so
Okay.
what is recovery service vault? So the vault, the term called vault is like it will save the complete information of your virtual machine. It will take a snapshot of the VM, the complete snapshot like your C drive, your D drive, okay, entire. If you have some 4 data disks which are attached to your virtual machine, all these disks
Mhm.
it will take a backup and it will save it on your virtual machine in your recovery service vault. So while restoring, you can restore complete your virtual machine from the scratch. Maybe your operating system or
Can you just
the
please repeat what is recovery words? I'm just noting it down. So
recovery service
just
vault. This virtual machine, it's like a snapshot. Okay, so
okay, like this.
your recovery service vault will take a snapshot. Okay, so we are scheduling a time. Let's assume we are scheduling a time at 1 a.m., which is midnight, 1 a.m.
Mhm.
IST. So at 1 a.m., it will initiate a backup. Okay, so it will initiate a
Okay.
backup which is full backup, the complete
Mhm.
backup of your virtual machine. Okay, so
Mhm.
it will take full backup of your virtual machine. It will take a snapshot. Okay, and it will
Mhm.
save that snapshot on your recovery service vault. Okay, so once the backup
Okay.
is completed and the one entry will get added to your recovery service vault. So
Mhm.
after 5 hours or maybe after a day, not after a day, within 24 hours, again one more backup will get initiated. So maybe after 6 hours or maybe after 8 hours. So if something happens to your virtual machine, okay, then
Mhm.
you can restore from your latest restore point. Because my
Okay.
virtual machine got backed up at 1 a.m. and it got completed by 2 a.m. It will take maybe 30 or 40 minutes to complete your backup operation. So by
Mhm.
1:30, your virtual machine is backed up completely. That means all
Okay.
your settings. Okay. So now the date is December 30, right? So
Mhm.
on December 29, yesterday, I have installed some application on the virtual machine. So on
Mhm.
December 30 or 31st, because 1 a.m. will consider as 31st, right? So at 1 a.m., okay, on December 31st, my virtual machine or the recovery service vault will initiate a backup. And on 29th of December, I have installed some application. And on 30th, also I've installed some application. So all these application will get backed up to your recovery service vault on which is 1 a.m. on 31st. Okay.
Okay.
Then
Mhm.
on 31st of morning, if your virtual machine is not accessible, then you can
Mhm.
restore your virtual machine to 31st of 1 a.m.
Okay. Okay. Mhm.
Okay, so that means you will have your 29th of your 29th software and 30th of software and also 31st software.
Okay.
Okay, it will
Mhm.
take backup of your virtual machine, which is full backup. Okay, so here to enable your backup, the mandatory part or the basic requirement is you have to create a recovery service vault. That is the service. Okay, from here you can create it. Okay, else
Mhm.
you can go to all services or recovery create a service, and from here also you can create a recovery service vault. Okay, here it is asking you to create new, or if you wanted to choose the existing one. Okay, so
Okay.
currently we have not created a recovery service vault. Okay, that
Mhm.
is the reason we have to go with a create new only. We'll do one thing. We'll just create a recovery service vault from create a resource, or we'll go to all
Okay.
services. Okay,
Also, this is
and recovery service vault.
words.
Okay, so my virtual machine is in West Europe location, so I have to create a recovery service vault in the same location. So I'll do one
Okay.
thing. I'll just click on add. Okay, I'll select the resource group, and location is West
So
Europe. Fine.
recovery service vault location should be same as the VM location, region location.
Absolutely correct. Okay. Test VM recovery service vault and West Europe.
Okay.
Test VM RG.
Mhm. So Rajesh, like when we enable the backup, okay, and so while enabling the backup, we'll have to select the recovery
Hmm.
service bot name, whether we can create a new one or we use the existing one. So whatever backup
Right.
is done, like C drive and D drive or M drive, whatever drive is there in your machine, so all the data would
Hmm.
be backed up to the particular that
Recovery service
specific
vault.
recovery service mode.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
we can
So if
restore
you
it.
see
We
here,
can restore it from.
right, you can restore it by using your latest restore point. So it will give you
Yes.
your latest restore point. So based upon your
Mhm.
latest restore point, you can restore your virtual machine and your virtual machine will be working fine.
Working. Okay.
Okay, so if you notice, we have created a recovery service vault in West Europe location. So by default, it got selected. So if you want, you can go
Okay.
ahead and create new. Else, you can go with an existing one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First,
Okay. Okay.
you have to select your recovery service vault. Second, you
Mm-hmm.
have to create a backup policy. Backup policy is how often you wanted to back up your virtual machine. You wanted to back up your virtual machine on a daily basis. If you want, you can
Mm-hmm.
back up your virtual machine on a weekly basis. If you want, you can back up your virtual machine on a monthly basis. So
Okay.
these policies you have to set up while configuring or when enabling a backup of a virtual machine. Okay. So here it says default policy. If you wanted to create, we'll just create a new policy. Okay. So I'll put it
Okay.
as like test VM hyphen and backup hyphen policy. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
frequency. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll select daily. Okay. So at what time I'll select, usually backup will happen at non-business hours. Non-business hours. So if it is IST, so most of the
Mm-hmm.
users will contact your virtual machine from morning 9 o'clock to evening 6 or maybe till 9 p.m. or maybe 10 p.m. Right? But no one will
Mm-hmm.
contact or no one will use your virtual machine at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Right? So at that point of
Right.
time, no one will use your virtual machine because if backup is enabled or if backup operation is started on the virtual machine, so it will use some resources. Your virtual machine will be busy. So if you enable
Okay.
backup on business hours, maybe morning 9 o'clock or maybe 10 o'clock, at that point of time, users are making some changes, right? Users are
Mm-hmm.
making some changes, but backup has initiated at 9 a.m. User made a
Mm-hmm.
change at 9:30, but backup got completed at 10 p.m. Sorry, 10 a.m. Then it will miss some
Mm-hmm.
changes. Okay.
Ah,
So usually backup will enable or backup operation will start on a non-business hours, maybe 1 a.m.,
understood.
12 a.m. or 3 a.m. as per your
Right.
availability or as per your requirement. So we'll
Right.
set it by at 9 or 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
We'll enable it 1 a.m. Okay. So I'll choose it IST. IST. Okay. 1 a.m. IST.
When am I
Okay.
okay.
So here, okay, so this is daily. Daily at 1
Mm-hmm.
a.m., your virtual machine will initiate a backup, which is full backup.
Right.
Okay.
Mm.
Then I'll put it as, okay. It says 10, not restore 3 or 7. Maximum would be, let me put it as 3. Okay. Then retention of weekly backup and on Sunday 12 weeks is fine. Retention of monthly backup is first. Retention of yearly backup, it's fine. Okay. So here if you see, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I have enabled everything. I have enabled daily backup. I have enabled weekly backup here. I have enabled monthly
Mm-hmm.
backup. Also I have enabled yearly backup. Okay. So daily backup every day at 1 a.m. your virtual machine will initiate full backup
Right.
every day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every day your virtual machine
Every
will
day.
initiate a full backup. Okay.
Right.
And then, okay, and then it also initiate a weekly backup. Okay, weekly backup, like on Sunday, on every Sunday, okay, on every Sunday at 1 a.m., it will initiate a weekly backup. That means on Monday it will initiate only one backup, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but on Sunday it will initiate a weekly backup, complete backup, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and everything. Okay, and then it will also initiate a monthly backup, which is on every first Sunday at 1 a.m. same time. It will initiate a monthly backup. And a yearly backup, if you want, you can use it. January 1st Sunday, it will initiate at 1 a.m., which is yearly backup. We'll simply save it as a yearly backup and a monthly backup and a weekly backup. So usually we can
Okay.
go for a daily backup, because daily backup is very important. So no one will restore for a weekly backup. No one will go for a weekly basis. So most of the time people will go for a daily backup only. Okay. And also if you see the retention period, okay, so the retention period of daily backup is 180 days. So that means you can restore your virtual machine for last 180 days, which is 6 months. That means if something happens to your virtual machine, so now it's December month, right? So December 30, okay? So you have enabled backup. So you have enabled backup in the month of January 2019, okay? And you have mentioned retention period as 180 days. Then today is 30th of December, right? So you can go back to 6 months. You can go back to 6 months, and then you can restore your virtual machine. The retention period is like it will save 6 months of data.
6 months.
For last
Okay.
6 months, you can restore your virtual machine. You can go back to August, September, October, November, December, August. You can go back to August 1st, and then you can restore. You can go back to July, then you can restore. But you cannot go back to June and April, because you have set your retention period only for 180 days. But that is only for documentation purpose, but no one will go back. It doesn't make any sense actually, because if your virtual
Right.
machine is not working, so you will get to know your virtual machine is not working within a day. No one will leave that virtual machine for months, right? You will get to know only maybe for 2 days or maybe 3 days. So anyway, user will complain that I'm unable to access the application or the software on the virtual machine. So you'll start troubleshooting on that. So no one will complain after 2 months or after 6 months, right? So even though you're initiating daily backup, so no user will complain after 6 months, uh, because virtual machine will be used on a daily basis. So, but to be on a secure way, you can put your retention period for 180 days, but this is for 12 weeks and this is for 6 months. Okay, so this is a backup policy, how you enable backup and how you configure backup on a virtual machine. Okay, so now I'll just save it.
Rajesh, can you just go?
Okay.
So,
Yeah, please.
and what is that retain instant recovery snapshot for 3 days that we have? The range should be 1 to 5. What is that? Instant restore.
Very instant
This
restore. You're talking about this?
yes. Right. So, yes, I'm talking about this.
This should be okay. So this should be maximum of 7 days, I think. Let me put it as 7, no, 6,
No,
no, 5 days.
between 1 to 5. Yeah, between 1 to 5. It was showing. If I
This
click,
is between. So this is like retain instant recovery. So this will fall under your retention period, which is 180 days. So your 180 days. So if you restore your virtual machine, so if you set as 180 days, so your recovery service vault, okay, so will save 180 days of data for the last 180 days of data, but that will be in a queue. Okay, so if you wanted to restore your restore your snapshot of your virtual machine, so you can set a maximum of 5 days. Okay, so here 5 days is a maximum and 1 day is a minimum. I think 1 day has to be minimum.
Right.
Yes, 1 day is the minimum and maximum you can go for 5 days. So we will choose it as 5 days only. So that means instantly. So instantly you can simply go back to your 5 days of data and you can do changes and then you can restore your virtual machine. So this is similar to your 180 days only. But the only thing is like it will retain your virtual machine instantly, very quick.
Instantly. Okay.
But this will 180 days of data will be there in your vault. So you can feel that yes, my 180 days of backup is available in my vault. That you can do. Okay. So I'll just click on save. Anyway, this is not used actually, because weekly backup and monthly backup and yearly backup no one will use, but anyway we'll put it as we will sell it. Okay. Then this is the information of your backup policy. So he frequently daily at 1 a.m. IST, and he retains instant recovery snapshot for 5 days, retention range, everything, daily backup, weekly, monthly and yearly. Okay. So now I'll simply enable backup. Now it will validate. Okay. And then it will enable backup. Okay. So the recommendation,
and how long
the
this
recommended thing,
and how long this
five
backup will be there in recovery service vault?
for 180 days. For your daily backup, it will be there for 180 days.
Okay.
In your recovery service vault, you can see 180 days of backup. Because the retention period, what we set it is 180 days. Right? So it will hold it. So it will hold your backup.
If
So
like
if
suppose
it is
if today I
365,
took a backup, so today if I take a backup, so after 180 days I can restore that.
this
Till
backup, which is
till
December 30th of backup.
okay.
But at 181th day, you cannot restore December 30th of backup, but you can
30th of
restore
data.
December
Okay.
31st of backup.
Right.
And 182 January 1st.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So now we have simply enabled backup. So we have simply enabled backup. Okay. But we have not initiated backup. Okay. We have configured backup actually. So what we did, we added our virtual machine to the recovery service vault. You got it, right?
Right.
So we just added our virtual machine to the recovery service vault. That means at 1 a.m., which is IST, it will initiate an automatic backup. You got it, right? But if you see, if I go back to my virtual machine and if I see backup is enabled, but there won't be any restore points. Okay. So if you see, no restore points available currently. No restore points. Because the next backup is at 1 a.m. Because the next backup, the scheduled backup is at 1 a.m. Now the current time in IST is 9:12, right? So maybe after 4 hours, okay, it will initiate a backup, which is scheduled backup.
Okay.
But that is not recommended. So when you configure or when you enable backup, the first thing what you have to do is you have to initiate a manual backup immediately. Okay. So you have to initiate a manual backup. Okay. Done. So now backup is enabled. Now the backup is enabled. This is a manual backup, but still at 1 a.m. on 31st of December, it will initiate a automatic backup or a scheduled backup at 1 a.m. Anytime, if you want, you can initiate a manual backup. That you can do. Anytime.
Okay.
Manual backup, you can do it anytime. But scheduled backup, it will initiate at 1 a.m. every day.
Every day 1 a.m.
So it will take some time. Now it will take some time to complete this backup operation. So the backup operation or the backup jobs. So if you wanted to see the status, so what is the status? So whether the backup is initiated or because if you see, it simply says triggering backup for test VM. Simply it triggered the backup. You got it right? So it triggered the backup operation of this virtual machine to the recovery service vault. But the backup has not been completed. So if you wanted to see the backup status or the backup progress, we have to see from the recovery service vault only. Okay, so now I'll go to all services. Okay, my recovery service vault. Okay, so this is a recovery service vault. Okay, now I'll select the recovery service vault. So I have enabled backup of a virtual machine on this recovery service vault, right? So if I go to backup, okay, it says one backup item is added. If you see, one virtual machine is added here. Okay. If you wanted to see more details, what the backup item which is added to this recovery service vault, we can go to backup items. Okay. If you go to backup items, it says Azure virtual machine. One Azure VM is added to this recovery service vault. So I'll just select this and let's see here. This is my VM, which is test VM 01, and this is the resource group, and this is the backup region, which is passed. And the last backup status, it says warning, initial backup is pending. We have initiated, we have triggered the backup, but the backup operation has not been completed. So we have to check the status of the backup operation. Okay. So here in backup jobs, in the same recovery service vault, we have to go and see in the same recovery service vault. Okay. If you see, backup is in progress.
Okay.
We have configured backup. Configure backup is completed. Okay, 3:40, which is IST, sorry, which is UTC time, and backup, which is in progress. The backup operation is in progress at 3:42. So it will take some time, maybe 20 minutes or maybe half an hour or maybe 45 minutes, based upon your VM size and the data size. Okay, so this is how you enable backup. So we have to make sure every time, whenever you go to your virtual machine, okay, you have to make sure only one thing, that your virtual machine backup should be enabled, and you have to see the status, the last backup status. If you see the last backup status, it simply says warning, initial backup is pending. So here it has to be succeeded, or it has to show the last backup status succeeded, and also the oldest restore point. It has to say the restore point. What is the oldest restore point? Okay, so we'll just leave this for now. So anyway, it will initiate a backup, and then it will take the complete snapshot of your virtual machine, and it will save one entry in your recovery service vault. Okay, so if you notice, your recovery service vault has to be in the same location, which is in West Europe location. Okay, so now I'll show you one thing. Now what we will do, we will create another recovery service vault in North Europe location. I'll go here, not new. I'll close this. I'll put it in here and test VM recovery vault North. Change North Europe. Create and save. Okay, it's got created. So let us see where is the other virtual machine. Okay, so let's assume if we wanted to enable backup for UK South location. Okay, so the current location of this virtual machine is UK South. Okay, and if I go to backup, okay, if I go to backup, it's asking me to create a new recovery service vault. But in our subscription, we have two recovery service vault. One recovery service vault is in West Europe location, and other recovery service vault is in North Europe location. If you try to select existing one, okay, it won't actually. It won't give you no existing vaults in VM subscription, because the problem here is the virtual machine, this virtual machine, which is test VM 02, is in UK South location, but our existing recovery service vault is in West Europe and North Europe location. So we don't have any recovery service vault in UK South location. Okay, so the condition is your virtual machine and your recovery service vault has to be in the same location. Like your network components, your storage components should be in the same location, right? So you cannot create a virtual machine in UK South by using a virtual network from North India location, or you cannot create a virtual machine by using South India data disk or South India managed disk. Okay, so these conditions. Okay, so in the same way, your recovery service vault, your network components, your storage components should be from the same location where your virtual machine is residing. Okay, so let it go for now. Your North Europe virtual machine, which is backing up, right? So the next point, the next feature is disaster recovery. Okay, so you got an idea, right? What is backup and how to restore your backup? How to restore, I'll show you. So once the backup operation gets completed, so it will give us an option to restore your virtual machine. I'll show you how to restore as well. Okay, so any
Okay.
doubts in backup?
No, it's all good. Yes.
Okay, cool then. So now I'll show you how to enable disaster recovery and why we enable disaster recovery. Okay, so disaster recovery. So the name or the term disaster recovery is if something happens. So if something happens at your location, where West Europe location, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe due to some network issues, okay, if your West Europe location or if your West Europe data center is completely washed out, okay, at that
Mm-hmm.
point of time, still you can restore your virtual machine from another location. That means you can create a copy of your virtual machine in another location, which is paired region. So for West Europe
Okay.
location, the paired region is North Europe location. Okay, I'll
Mm.
show you how
Okay.
to enable that. Okay, so
Okay.
now let me go to the virtual machine. Okay, so let us choose the same virtual machine. Okay, I'll go to disaster recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here it says, here you can see this symbol, you can see this diagram. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
here you are replicating from your source region to your destination region or your target region. Okay, you can see here the source region is West Europe. Okay, and your selected target region is North Europe. Okay, the blue color is West Europe, and the
Yes.
color which is
Okay.
in maroon, kind of red color, which is North
Mm-hmm.
Europe location. That means here you can replicate. You can replicate your virtual machine from West Europe location, which is your source region, to your
Mm-hmm.
destination region, which is North Europe location in this case. Okay,
Okay.
and also the other location, which are these, are available. If you want, you can choose other location as well from here.
The location. Okay.
Okay, so you can choose other location like here. You can scroll this down. Close it. Okay, sorry. Okay, so here you can choose France Central, South Africa North, UAE North, UK South, West Europe. Okay, but as per the documentation, as per the Microsoft documentation, the paired region for West Europe location is North Europe location only.
Right.
Okay, so we can choose North Europe location, but still Microsoft has given some options or given some target region where you can choose from. Okay, so
Okay.
now we will go with North Europe location. In a case like if something happens to Europe or the complete Europe
Mm-hmm.
region, still you
Mm-hmm.
can, if you choose UAE location, which is here, right? Okay, which is here. So if something happens to these locations, still you can replicate or still you can have your virtual machine in this region. That you can do. Okay, so in exceptional cases, if you wanted to choose that, also you can do that. It is possible. But as per the recommendation, we'll go to with North Europe location only. So this is a subscription issue. If you see your subscription does not support virtual machine creation in UAE North, because our subscription is free trial, right? So we have some limitations. We cannot use all region to create your virtual machine, because free trial will have some test servers in data center. So only on that test servers will create your virtual machine. So for now, we'll go with North Europe location, which is your paired region as per the Microsoft documentation. Okay. Then I'll select start replicating. So that means your virtual machine will replicate from your source region, which is West Europe, to the destination region, which is North Europe. So I'll simply select start and replication. Okay, so once you select or once you configure disaster recovery, okay, so once you configure this option, okay, so it will create, okay, so it will create a resource group in your North Europe location, and also it will create, so it will have a replica. A replica is, it will have a copy of your virtual machine. You got it right. So your virtual machine
Right.
will be running in West Europe location, and it will have the entire components like your resource group and your virtual network and one storage account will get created, which is cache storage account, and your data disk. If you have any data disk, and one data disk will get created in North Europe, and one operating system disk will get created in North Europe. So these are the components which will get created in your destination or your target region, which is North Europe. Okay. So if you see source free trial, which is your subscription, yes, correct. And your target subscription is also free trial. That is fine.
Yes.
And your resource group, and my current virtual machine is in test VM-RG, and this, if you see new, one more resource group will get created, which is test VM-RG-ASR. -ASR is Azure Site Recovery. Okay. The term ASR in Azure is Azure Site Recovery. Okay. And virtual network, test VM-RG VNet. And in North Europe also one more virtual network will get created, which is test VM-RG-VNet-ASR. Okay. And availability, yes, our virtual machine is a single instance. We have not enabled any availability set on that. Okay. And if you see here, okay, this is a replica managed disk. Okay. So one standard hard HDD, which is data disk 01 will get created, which is your source managed disk. And in the same way, one more disk will get created in North Europe. Okay. And this is your operating system disk. One more operating system will just get created.
Right.
And then your recovery service vault. Okay. So if you see here, while enabling or while configuring disaster recovery for a virtual machine, you have to select your recovery service vault from another location, not from the West Europe. If you see, we have selected North Europe recovery service vault, not the West Europe recovery service vault. I'll show you from the first. So let me close this. I'll close this. I'll go to backup. We'll go to recovery service vault. Okay. So if you see, now I'm selecting North Europe, right? Even though if you see my virtual machine location is in West Europe location, right?
West Europe, right.
The current location of my virtual machine is in West Europe, but when I try to configure disaster recovery, okay, here it will not show West Europe location. Here West Europe location is not visible. It will not show West Europe location because no one will enable target and source in the same location, right?
Same
so
location,
we have to select the paired region. So we'll go and select the North Europe location, and then at that point of time you have to make sure there should be a recovery service vault in North Europe location. Currently we have selected North Europe location. So if I try to select North Europe, if I go and review and select replication, okay, automatically my recovery service vault got selected. Okay, so currently there is only one recovery service vault, so only one recovery service vault select by default. So if you have multiple recovery service vault, it will let you to choose the recovery service vault from the list. Now what I'll do, I'll go back. Okay, I'll go to previous and previous. Okay, and I'll try to select Fan Central. Okay, now I selected Fan Central. Now if I go to click and review here, okay, if I go here, okay, now I'll go to previous and then I'll go to previous, okay, and I'll go here. Okay, so now I'll just select North Europe location here, which is our paired region. Okay, and then which is source region, and West Europe and North selected region is North Europe. So if you select any other location, it will change here to France Central, which is this location. And if I try to select this, yes, it is allowing me to select. And if I try to select UAE, it is not allowing because UAE is not available for our subscription, because our subscription is free trials. Okay, so now I'll go with the default one, which is North Europe. Okay, and then I'll go and select advanced settings. Okay, here you have these options. Okay, so as source, if I say source is our West Europe location, target is North Europe. Okay, so your source, your target should be in the same subscription. Done. And resource group, it will get created. Okay, but still if you wanted to choose, you can choose existing one, but let it be with a new one only. Here also still you can choose existing, but let it be as a new. Okay,
Okay.
and then I'll just scroll it down and I'll go to details. Okay, and now if you see, this is a storage account. This is a
Mm-hmm.
cache storage account. Cache storage account is like, it will take the information from source, okay, and then it will replicate the information to the target. That means the storage account will act as a medium or a storage.
Uh-huh.
Whatever the changes if you made to your West Europe server, so that changes will happen on your operating system disk or maybe on your data disk. Okay, so the changes, the complete changes, the storage account will take from your West Europe location, and all these changes will replicate to your North Europe location. So this storage
Okay.
account will hold all your information, or it will take the cache information of your West Europe location virtual machine. Okay, and then if you see the replica managed this, here
Mm-hmm.
data disk 01 ASR will get created, which is new. Okay, and also test VM OS disk will get created, which is new. Okay, you can change the replica if you want. Okay, now
Okay.
I'll go to replication settings.
Okay.
Okay, so here if we go down, okay, so it's asking me to select the resource recovery service vault. So okay, so here if you try to select it, okay, here if you try to select the same recovery service vault where the virtual machine is, if you see the error, what is says, it should says that it should not allow because this recovery service vault is in West Europe location and you are trying to enable disaster recovery from the same recovery service vault.
Same
That is
recovery.
not recommended.
Right.
Okay, so your okay, see the selected vault or the vault's resource group is in the same region as of source VM. In the event of a disaster data center disruption, the vault or the resource group also might not be available. Ensure you
Right.
select the vault from a different region,
Different
right?
region.
So West Europe location is not recommended, or it will not allow you to select. It is not recommended and it will not allow you to select. The option, you have to select the North Europe location. It has to go now. Why? Next.
No, I think recovery service vault is still not.
We have selected the correct recovery service vault only, but
Okay.
it is not. It got not refreshed, I think.
Mhm.
Next, let me start from first then. Okay.
So Rajesh, it is not.
Sorry.
So Rajesh, it is not mandatory that disaster recovery location would be the any of the paired region. It could be anything, which is but with
It
the
could
same
be
source.
any region. Yes,
It could be
that you
any
can do.
region.
It could be in any other region. You can put it in any other location where
But in
it's
that case,
asking you to select a France Central, right?
okay, yeah. So in that case, like suppose here we selected France Central, okay. So that France Central and North Europe, so both of these two regions will have would become a paired region in that case, like, and the replication will happen.
Not actually. No. Replication will happen, but from West Europe to France Central, these both data centers are not paired regions.
Right. So the replication will happen through via internet only.
Yes, replication will happen, but the replication will not be fast as compared to the paired regions. Because
Paired
in
region.
paired region, replication will be very, very fast. Because that is a dedicated line between these two, destination and source and the destination. But in West Europe is a source one, and North Europe is the actual or the recommended destination. But France Central is not the recommended destination. But still you can configure,
Recommended destination.
but the synchronization or the replication will not be quick or it will not be instant. Synchronization will happen and replication will happen, but that will be very slow compared to the paid regions.
Very slow compared to the paid. Okay.
Hmm. So that depends upon you, actually. That depends upon you. So, because North Europe location and West Europe location, if you feel that these two regions are very close, then due to some network climate issues or due to some climate issues, maybe your North Europe and your West Europe will get impacted. So at that point of time, both your source and destination data centers got vanished, right? So at that point of time, your virtual machine will not be available. So you should not worry about the paid region. So at that point of time, you have to select a data center which is far away from your source region, maybe like France
Source region.
or maybe like UAE.
Right.
Because West Europe and North Europe are close each other. Because I think West Europe, the data center is in London, and North Europe, I think it's in Amsterdam, which is in Netherlands.
So in that case, the recovery service vault would be different for France Central, we have different recovery service vault, and for North Europe, we
Right.
have different.
Right. So that depends actually. So that depends upon the customer and the requirement. So it says North Europe. So West Europe is in Netherlands. Okay.
Right.
And
North Europe is Ireland.
it says Node. What is this?
Node.
Okay. Then any others? Ireland, right? Sorry, Ireland. And UK West, so UK East is in London and UK West is in Cardiff. Okay. Ireland and Netherlands. I'm not sure the distance between what is the distance between these two regions, because if there is a climate issues, then both Netherlands and Ireland region get affected, then your primary region and secondary region will not be available, right? So in that case, you can select a far, which is France Central. I think France Central is Paris. I think Paris is far from Netherlands.
Yes.
That depends. But still you can do that. But your replication synchronization will not be fast as compared to your paid regions.
Right.
Okay. So now I'll select North Europe for now. Okay. And the replication policy, which is 24 hours. Okay. So that you can put it as 24 hours. Okay. And then storage. It will give you your data disk and your operating system disk. Okay. And then your extension, it's fine. Okay. And this is replication policy, what you can select. And this is your cache storage account. Done. Okay. And done. So now I'll go to review and start replicate. Okay, if you see, this is a summary of your disaster recovery. Source, target, one resource group will be created in North Europe location, one virtual network will get created in North Europe location. Okay, and these are the replica disk which will get created in North Europe location. Okay, and your replication policy is 24 hours, which is retention policy. Okay, so now I'll just click on start replication, creating resources or creating target resources. So this 24-hour retention period is if something happens in West Europe location, okay, something happens in West Europe location, so you will have a 24 hours of time. Okay, so 24 hours of time to retain your virtual machine from West Europe location. So within 24 hours you have to act, and then you have to start creating your virtual machine in North Europe location. So all your application, all your softwares which are installed on your West Europe location will get replicated to the North Europe location, and from North Europe location you can provision one more virtual machine. So you have to provision manually. Okay.
But
So
this retention 24 hours retention policy is like within 24 hours we'll have to restore our virtual machine. Otherwise,
right.
we lost it.
You have to act. You have to act within 24 hours. Right. That is the maximum period. That is a period which you have in replication, which is 24 hours. So within 24 hours, you have to act. Because if something happens to your West Europe data center, so immediately Microsoft will inform you, or maybe users will inform you that my virtual machine is not working, right? So immediately you have to act, and you have to provision a virtual machine in North Europe location, and the virtual machine which you provision in North Europe location will have same information of North West Europe location, the complete information, the data and your files and your operating softwares or the application, everything will be same in North Europe location. Still you can access your application from North Europe location. That you can do. Okay. So it will take
So
some
in
time.
case
Disaster
Rajesh,
recovery will. Hmm.
so in case suppose like there is a 24-hour retention policy. So like suppose uh, uh, like I'm not available, okay, and after after 23rd hour, okay, I came to know, okay, this
Hmm.
needs to be recovered, this needs to be restored,
Hmm.
this virtual machine
Hmm.
from the disaster recovery center. Okay, so if I started restoration process in 23rd hour,
Hmm.
and it will take more time,
Hmm.
and also it will partially happen, or it will be like no, it will not be happen
It will restore your complete virtual machine. But the only thing is like you have to act within 24 hours.
within 24. Yeah, even okay.
So
Even if it is
you can do.
23rd
So
hour,
if it
then
take,
we can do.
if it takes
Yeah.
more, if it takes some 2 hours or 3 hours, it's fine. But you have to act
Okay.
because your retention policy
We'll
is
have to, yeah,
24
we'll
hours,
have
and you
to
have to
start
do that.
recovery. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to
Right,
start
right.
restoration
That you can
process
do.
within 24 hours. Okay.
Right, that you have to do. Okay, so it will take some time, disaster recovery, because
Mm-hmm.
it will create some resources in North Europe location like resource group, virtual network, operating system disk, which is replica disk, and your data disk and a cache storage account. So these resources it will get created, and also it will configure disaster recovery. Okay, so anyway you can do a failover. Failover is
Mm-hmm.
like you're simply copying virtual machine from West Europe location, and then you are creating a virtual machine in North Europe location. If your West Europe data center is not available, still you can have your
Uh-huh.
virtual machine from West Europe location to North Europe location. That we can do. Okay, so I think backup policy is completed. We'll see. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so now I'll go to recovery service vault. Okay, just go to
Okay.
recovery service vault, which is in West
Uh-huh.
Europe. Okay. Now I'll go to backup items. If you see, there is one virtual machine which we have enabled, right? So if you see,
Right.
test VM virtual machine is enabled. Okay.
Right.
And the backup recheck is completed. Last backup status is also success. Okay.
Right.
So I'll see the backup job. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go and see the backup job, it says still in progress. Okay,
Still in
it's been
progress.
29 minutes. Okay, still in progress. Okay, now the backup is in progress. It is backup is in progress only.
Okay, backup is still in progress. Backup is not yet completed.
Yes, backup is not completed actually. Still it says like in progress. So let it be. Okay, now if I wanted to see this disaster recovery, okay, the
Mm-hmm.
replication which we have enabled, right? So here we cannot see in the West Europe location, because in West Europe location we have enabled only backup. But disaster recovery we have enabled in North Europe. Okay, so
Uh-huh.
in North Europe data centers, okay, if
Mm-hmm.
you go and see in backup items, it won't show you anything, because in North Europe recovery service world we have not enabled backup, but we have enabled disaster recovery. Okay, so here
Okay. Uh-huh.
replication still not added. If I go and see the site recovery jobs, replication is still in progress. Okay, it's not added actually, so it will take some time.
Okay.
So in West Europe recovery service world we have enabled backup. In North Europe location, recovery service world we have enabled DR, because DR has to be enabled uh, a different region apart from the same region, which is West Europe. It has to be North Europe or the France Central or UAE East or the UK South, the list of locations which they given in that option, right? So only that location you have to enable disaster recovery. Here, if you go and see the
Right.
backup jobs, it won't give you anything, because we have not added any virtual machine as a backup to this North Europe. We
Till
have
North.
added a virtual machine as a DR to this North Europe, not
Right.
the
Right.
backup, right? So
Backup. Okay.
replicated items, it has to show. Anyway, it will take some time because it says cell enabling replication, right? So this will take some time, not like backup. Okay. Site recovery jobs, success, and replicated items, still not added, still not added. Site recovery. Okay, replication policy is in progress. Previously it was completed. In progress. Okay, anyway, let it be. So now I'll go to my virtual machine. I'll go to this VM.
Rajesh, could you just please hold on for a minute?
Yeah, please, no problem.
Yeah, Rajesh.
Okay. So anyway, disaster recovery will take some time. Okay. So even if you notice, backup is also in progress, right? So
yes.
If I go and see the backup jobs, still is in progress. So let it be. We'll just wait for some time. Okay. So once this is completed, I'll show you how to restore, and also the recovery service how to fail over our virtual machine to North Europe location. Replicated items. Okay, one is enabling. Now it just added. So earlier it was not there, right? So now it just added. And site recovery jobs. Still protection. It's protecting now. It will take some time. Okay. So this is a difference actually. So backup, the term backup, it will take complete snapshot of your virtual machine and it will save it in your same location of your virtual machine in recovery service vault. Disaster recovery, still it will take the backup, kind of a backup, or it will replicate. We will say like replicate. It will replicate from your source region, which is in our case West Europe, to North region or the North Europe region, which is the destination one. It will simply replicate. Here it will take a snapshot and it will save it in the same region. DR, it will take the changes, or it will replicate all your information from source, which is West Europe, to the destination, which is North Europe. Okay, so it will take some time. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So backup and disaster recovery, like doing the same job. Like backup is also take the images of your virtual machine, and disaster recovery also doing the same thing. But the difference is only disaster recovery create the replicate different location, while backup is on the same location.
Right. Correct. That is correct. Absolutely right. So backup, if something happens, so if you made a changes to the virtual machine, and if you did some experiment on your virtual machine and your virtual machine is completely crashed, then you can go for a backup, or you can go for a restore. Then you can restore your virtual machine for from a working condition. That you can do. Disaster recovery is like if something happens to the entire data center. If your West Europe data center is completely washed out, then at that point of time, you can restore or you can fail over your virtual machine from West Europe location to North Europe location.
Right.
Okay. Here we have not made any changes. We did not made any changes to the virtual machine. Microsoft itself, or maybe due to some climate issues, your West Europe data center is not available. Then at that point of time, you can have your virtual machine, or you can have same virtual machine, which is replica of your virtual machine, to North Europe location from West Europe, because your West Europe location is completely replicating. It's keep on replicating your information to North Europe location. Every minute, if you do a changes, it will replicate to your North Europe location. It is very often actually. Maybe a 5 minutes job, I think. Each and every 5 minutes, it will check for the changes and then it will replicate to the North Europe location. So if you have 10 folders on your virtual machine which is in West Europe location, so all your 10 folders will replicate to North Europe location. And after 5 minutes, it will verify. Yes, 10 folders are there in West Europe and 10 folders are there in North Europe, so no changes. So if one more folder gets added to West Europe, so here it will verify 10 folders in West Europe, sorry, 11 folders in West Europe, but 10 folders in North Europe. So the one folder will get replicated to the North Europe location. So if you make any changes on West Europe, it will immediately replicate all your changes to the North Europe location, and it will make sure your North Europe location is up to date.
Okay.
Okay.
And
So
yes,
this
and both the location, like in disaster recovery also, all the replication or snapshot will be in the recovery service folder.
yes, correct, absolutely correct. Because if here in this case, if something happens to your virtual machine is in West Europe location, which is in West Europe location, so your virtual machine will not be available, your network components will not be available, your recovery service vault will not be available. That is the reason your recovery service vault has to be North Europe location, because here I have selected North Europe location as DR for West Europe VM. Okay. But if something happens to West Europe location, still I can access North Europe recovery service vault because North Europe location is available, right? So I'll simply go to my North Europe recovery service vault and go and see the replicated items and see the status. Yes, the status is enabled, enabling protection, but it will be enabled. Once this is completed, the status will be enabled. So then I'll go to my virtual machine. I'll see the entire replication and the complete status here. Then I'll fail over my virtual machine to North Europe location from West Europe. That I will do.
Failure.
Okay. Failover. Failover is like you're simply failover. Yes. Failover is like if something got failed in your source location, you're simply failovering your failed region from West Europe location to North Europe. Failover is like something happened in your source. You're taking that replica from source to the destination, which is target.
Okay.
Okay. So this backup and the DR will take some time. So no need to wait for this, because so once these jobs get completed, I'll show you how to restore your virtual machine from the latest restore point and how to do a failover of your virtual machine from West Europe to North Europe. Okay. So any doubts or any questions on backup and disaster recovery? Because now we'll jump into the PaaS components. Okay,
yes,
we'll just jump into PaaS component. Yeah, cool then. So PaaS component, like I said, which is platform as a service. So here, before that, I'll just brief you about infrastructure or IaaS component. So here, if you see, you are able to see the virtual machine. You can see your operating system. You can see your VM size, which is 4 CPU and 16 GB of RAM. And also you can see your public IP, your private IP, your DNS name, and then you can log into the virtual machine as well. That means here one VM, one virtual machine is assigned to the customer. Okay, Microsoft will assign one virtual machine completely to the customer, and you can log into the virtual machine and you can install any software or any application on that virtual machine as per your request. Okay, so where in PaaS component, the platform. What is platform? So platform is the complete infrastructure. Okay, platform is like your infrastructure will provision. Microsoft will provision the infrastructure. Okay, simply you have to install your or you simply you have to use the database. The best example for the PaaS component is a database or analysis services. Okay, or any other data warehouse. Okay, so these are the PaaS component. Like the platform will be ready. Okay, so simply you can use the services which Microsoft has provided to the customers. Platform will be ready. Okay, only the service you have to use it, because currently you have installed this virtual machine. So let's assume you have created this virtual machine. But what is the use of creating this virtual machine? So I have simply provisioned this virtual machine. But what is the use of this virtual machine? Because I'm paying some money to the Microsoft by using this VM, right? Maybe some 10,000 rupees per month, or maybe some 5,000 rupees per month. But why I have created this virtual machine? Okay, so the next answer would be, I maybe have to configure some websites, or maybe I have to
Right.
install database on the virtual machine, or maybe I have to
Right.
install some software on the virtual machine, right? So
Right.
let's assume you wanted to configure, or you wanted to install a SQL database on the virtual machine. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so here you have to log into the virtual machine, and then you have to configure SQL database. So you have to install SQL database application on that, and then you have to configure the database. Okay, here
Right.
infrastructure is provided to you, and the whole and sole owner of your infrastructure will be the customer, and you have to log into the virtual machine, and then you have to install your SQL database on it, which is IaaS component. So now PaaS component, virtual machine will Microsoft will provide to you only database. Okay, database will you have to upload, or maybe you have to configure database on that particular SQL server. SQL Server will create, Microsoft will create for you only the database. Okay, only the database, and the content of your database has to be provided by the customer only, not from the Microsoft Azure. Okay, I'll show you how to create the SQL database. Okay, in the same way, I'll just go to all services. Okay, I'll just remove this. Okay,
But that SQL database will also have somewhere on VM. Okay, like that is
yes,
being
in
managed by
Microsoft,
Microsoft only.
Microsoft,
Microsoft
absolutely,
is
yes. Okay,
Microsoft is only responsible for that.
right. Microsoft will take the full responsibility of your SQL database,
SQL. Okay.
of SQL Server as well. Okay, so here you can create a SQL database. So here also, while creating SQL database, you have to create SQL Server as well. SQL Server is mandatory, but you will not have full permission on the SQL Server. You cannot log into the SQL Server. You cannot RDB to the SQL Server. But
Right.
somewhere Microsoft will create the infrastructure for you. The platform, the complete platform, Microsoft will create for you. Only the database you have to pay only for the database, not for the infrastructure. But here in IaaS component, you have to pay for the virtual machine, and if you wanted to install some application, you have to pay for the application as well. Here
Right.
you have to pay only for the database, not for the SQL Server. Okay, so I'll just click on add. Okay, so now I'll just click on add. Why it is taking time? Mm,
Microsoft .SQL.
mm. No, we have not created a SQL databases, right? So like I said, for each and every service, okay, so there will be a resource provider. So when you create, or when you provision a service in your subscription for the first time, the respective resource or the service provider, sorry, resource provider will get registered.
Right.
Okay, so now I'll just create new. Okay, I'll select existing. So let me choose a test VM -RG. Okay, so here it will ask you to provide a database name. So what I'll do, I'll put it as test SQL database. Okay, so here you can see server. Okay, select an existing server or create a new server. So currently we don't have any servers. Okay,
Right.
so the only option we have to create a new server. Okay, so now I'll select as test SQL server. Okay, and then I'll put it as Azure. It's already there. Test SQL server 0123. Right, cool. And Azure. Yes.
Password name should be.
Login name. No, this is the password name should be different. Understood. Mm, let me choose South India. Fine.
Yes.
West Europe is available. Correct. Okay. So if you see here, it's asking you to create a SQL server. Okay. So that means by using the SQL server, okay, you will log into your database. Okay. So we cannot simply log into the database directly. So you have to use your SQL server name to log into the database. So if you log into the SQL server, under this SQL server, it will list out what all databases you have. We cannot log in directly to the database because the database somewhere in Microsoft Azure, it will store on a SQL server, and the SQL server will be managed by Microsoft itself. So simply a SQL server will get created for you, and the SQL server will be managed by Microsoft Azure. So you cannot log in. So we cannot log into the SQL server by using RDP or maybe SSH. You have to use some tools to connect to the SQL server and to access your databases. You have to connect. Connect is like only by using SSMS or maybe your any other service, Power BI. Okay, Power BI desktop tool is one of the tool, and SSMS is also one of the tool, and any other tools. So you have to use that tool to connect to your SQL server. So once you connect to your SQL server, so it will list out all your databases. So currently I have only one database, and also if you want, you can have multiple databases. You can create one more database in the same SQL server as well. That you can do. Okay. So now I'll simply create a SQL server. So once this is done, now it will give you a pricing tier of your SQL database, not of the SQL server. If you see, these are the pricing tiers of your SQL database. Okay. So which is basic, standard, and premium. Expected premium will not be available for the free trials because premium is very expensive. Okay. Basic, if you can see here, the data maximum size is 100 MB and the minimum is 100 MB and the maximum is 2 GB, which is your database size. That means your database size can be maximum of 2 GB only, not more than that. Okay. So in standard,
2
you can
GB of
put
data.
2 GB of data, you can put it in your database. 2 GB is very less. And in standard, you can go for 250 GB, maximum of 250 GB, and you can see DTUs, which is, I think it's distributed transaction units. Yes. Okay. So this is like your CPU and your RAM of your virtual machine. So if you have one CPU and 2 GB of RAM, your virtual machine performance will be below average. So if you have 4 GB and 4 CPU and 16 GB of RAM, your virtual machine performance will be above average. If you have some 8 CPU and 32 GB of RAM, your virtual machine performance is really awesome, excellent. So in virtual machine, which is an infrastructure as a service or a VM, we will define the virtual machine performance based on your CPU and RAM. Okay, here in SQL databases, we will decide based upon your DTUs. So if your DTUs is good, or if your DTUs is more like 20 or 30 or 50, then your SQL database performance will be very good. That means more number of users can access or more number of users can connect to your database on a regularly, and then they can upload and they can download your data from your database as well. So it will define, your DTU will define your database performance. Okay. So free trial as a limit of S1. So I'll go to S1 only, which is S1 and 20 DTUs. So you can go till maximum of 3000 DTUs. it won't let you to do that. Okay. But anyway, if you see here, 250 GB, let's assume I have selected least, which is 250 GB, which is a maximum in the database, but in DTUs, which is 10, which is least. If you see, the estimated cost per month is 991 rupees INR. Okay. So if you change the size to 20, it says like 1982 rupees per month, which is estimated cost INR. Okay. If you go to 3000, okay, it says 29,000, not 29,000.
2,97,000.
2,97,000 per month. That means you can go till 3,000 DTUs, and your cost for your SQL database per month, that will be 2,97,452. Here, this will be estimated cost, okay, for the SQL database, okay, and also there is no way to pause. There is no way to stop and deallocate your database. Usually in our virtual machine, to avoid cost, we will stop and deallocate the virtual machine, right?
Correct.
So if you stop and deallocate your virtual machine, your billing will be stopped for your compute. But here in database, there is no way. You cannot stop your virtual machine, or you cannot pause your virtual machine, your database. SQL database cannot be paused. SQL database, the Azure SQL database cannot be paused, and it cannot be stopped and deallocated. If you simply create a SQL database by using 3000 DTUs with 250 GB of database capacity, still if you are not using the database, you have to pay 2,97,000 per month to the Microsoft. Still if you are not using at all. Simply you have created and you are not using your database, still you have to pay your complete money to the Microsoft. Because there is no way to stop billing for this. You got it? This is the database actually. Because the reason is, there is an infrastructure which is running behind, right? Microsoft has created an infrastructure for you. Even though you are not using your database, but Microsoft will charge for the infrastructure as well, which is the SQL server. Microsoft has created one SQL server, and the SQL server is assigned to you. There is an infrastructure utilization from the Microsoft end. But here you are not using the database. You are not uploading any data, or you are not inputting any data to the database, and you are not using your database at all. Still you have to pay the money because there is no way to pause it. Okay. So for now we'll go to basic, which is 10 DPUs, which is 250 GB. It's fine. This won't make any difference. Okay. So if you change it to 100 GB, or if you change it to 30 GB, or if you change it to 2 GB, the estimated cost will not differ much. Okay, because the only part of the DTU will play a major role. Okay, so let us.
What was the DTU full form?
Distributed transaction units. Distributed. It should be distributed transaction units only, if I'm not wrong. It should be distributed only. Distributed transaction units. I'm pretty sure about transaction units.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure about transaction units. You can see the difference here. What is the size we have selected? Size was S0, right? Database transaction or distributor, not database transaction units.
Okay. Database transaction unit. Yeah.
Database transaction units. No, sorry. Database transaction units. So it will, if you see the database transaction utilization, like database transaction from your database, from your on-premise, or maybe from user to your database to you, to the users. Okay, so currently we have selected S0, which is the basic one, right? So let it be, and let me go back to configure, and then I'll click on apply. Okay, now it's done. Okay, and then if you see, this is subscription and the test VM-RG and test SQL database and SQL server. Okay, so there is one option here. If you see, want to use elastic pool. Okay, if you see here, I'll tell you. So elastic pool is the current capacity, because the DTU, if you see, this is a storage and compute of your SQL database, right? Which is 10 DTUs, right? So currently you have 10 DTUs for the SQL database. Okay, so this is database level. If you have one database, you have 10 DTUs and 250 GB of storage. Okay, and this is database 01. Let's assume this is database 01. So you have created this. Okay, and then you are going to create one more database which is 02, and the DTU is 10 DTU and 250 GB of RAM. Sorry, 250 GB of storage. So at that point of time, you have two databases, and each database is having 10 DTUs and 250 GB of storage. Okay, if you select want to use SQL Elastic Pool, okay, if you want to select SQL Elastic Pool, what will happen? Okay, so it will ask you to create a new. That means I'll select test elastic, and then I click on OK. Okay, so that means if your database 1 is not using 10 DTUs, okay, but your database 2 is using 10 DTUs and it wants more, so your database 01 remaining, or the extra DTUs which is not consuming, right, it can be utilized to your database 02. You got it, right? So database 1 capacity is 10 DTU and database 2 capacity is 10 DTU, but your database 01 is very small. It is using only 1 DTU or maybe 2 DTUs. So 8 DTUs are free, but your database 02 is very busy. It needs more. So why to increase? If you wanted to increase from 10 to 20, you have to pay more, right? So if you choose Elastic Pool, your DTUs will get distributed. So you won't be having individual DTUs, okay, 10 or 20 like that. So here database 1, 10 DTU is assigned completely. You cannot use that. So again, database 02, again the 10 DTU is assigned. You cannot use that. So in order to pool, if you wanted to pool, you can create a pool and you can use that 10 or 20 DTUs accordingly, maybe 1 or 2. So here it will ask you to configure Elastic Pool. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll go to basic, not a standard only, we'll choose it as standard, and I'll select as 20 DTUs or 50 DTUs, and then I'll go to some around 100 GB, not 100 GB, I'll put it as 100 GB. Okay, so here I have to pay 8,157 and DTU is 50 DTUs. So that means if I create one more database, which is database 01, so both my database maximum capacity will be 50 DTUs, which is 50 eDTU, Elastic DTU, and one database can use 1 DTU and 49 database can be used by database 02. It depends. So that means 50 DTUs will be shared across these two databases. Earlier, 10 DTUs completely assigned and 10 DTUs is completely assigned to database 02. So in order to overcome, we can create an Elastic Pool of 50 DTUs, and this 50 DTUs will be shared across your database which are present on your single SQL server. Okay, so now I'll click on apply. So now what is happening? 50 DTU, okay, and then this database 02 and database 01 can use the 50 DTUs at one time. Can be shared. Okay.
So Rajesh, like for database, suppose in database 1 we have 30 DTUs, and database 2 we have again 30 DTUs. Okay, but since here we have selected 50 eDTUs. Okay, so both the databases will can share only 50 DTUs. The remaining 10 DTUs cannot be used.
Okay. Right, absolutely. So that means, see, 30 and 30, it is 60, right? But the maximum capacity you have only 50. So 30 DTU,
50.
your database 01 is using, and database 0 to one more 30 is using. But at that point of time, it will not allow to do that, because database 01 is using 30. So at that point of time, you will have some lag. So you won't be able to access your database very instantly. Okay. So it will take some time to access your database, but still you can access your database, but it will take some time, because here you have a maximum capacity of only 50. That 50 DTU has to be shared across your database on a single server, which is SQL Server. You have a limit. 50 is the maximum limit of your database, for your database, sorry. That is a 50 DTUs. Either database 01 can use 10 or your other database can use 40. Now, because currently database 01 no one is using, so database 01 can use 10, and today database 02 can use 40, but tomorrow database 01 will be very busy. So your database 01 can go to 40 and your database 02 can go to 10, because you have only 10 remaining in that. But earlier, if you're not enabling elastic pool, the maximum capacity for your database 01 is only 10. Maximum capacity is only 10. That's it. You cannot increase it. If you wanted to increase, you have to change the pricing tier. Maybe 20 or 30 you have to go.
Okay.
This is like often, very often. See, like if you have a scenario like your database 01 is busy today, but your database 01 is not busy tomorrow. That means your database 01 can go to 50 today, but tomorrow it will be at 1, 2 only. At that point of time, if you create elastic pool, your database will fluctuate from 0 to 1, sorry, 0 to 50 at any time. If it is busy, it will go to 50. It is not busy, it will stay at 1 or 2. But if you have not selected elastic pool, and if your database is busy, you have to increase from this, which is 10 to 50. At that point of time, you have to pay more for your individual databases, because database 01 will go to 50 today and tomorrow it will not, but database 02 will go to 50 at any time. Then each database maximum capacity, it has to have 50 for database 01 and 50 for database 02. At that point of time, you have to pay more money. Here you're sharing your database across your data, you're sharing your DTU across your database. Elastic, it is pool. It will pool as per your requirement. It may increase or it may decrease, but it will not disconnect, because if you have 10 database, which is a maximum capacity, if you are trying to increase, which is database transaction units, at that point of time it may hang or it may disconnect, because more number of users are trying to access your SQL Server. Okay? So in order to avoid that, you can create a elastic pool and you can create a 50 minimum elastic DTUs, and then it will increase from 0 to 1 based upon your requirement or based upon your request. Okay, so this is the elastic
DTU is database transaction unit is the one like the maximum number of users can be connected to the particular database. This is what
actually not that. So that is concurrent connections. SQL Server is not concurrent connection. So concurrent connection is like how many number of users can connect SQL Server at one point at the same time. At the same time, how many users can connect to the SQL Server. So that is concurrent connection. For concurrent connection for SQL Server, it is not, this DTU is not the concurrent connection. I think for SQL database it's more. Azure SQL Server concurrent connection is more actually. Not this one, SQL database limits. Database per server, you can just leave it, concurrent connection. Not this as well. I've seen somewhere. I know about that.
Maximum concurrent workers request.
Okay, concurrent sessions actually, not connections. If I type sessions here,
Patients
let
and
me give session. Okay, this is the thing only, right? Sessions.
yeah, yes. S4, S6,
The
S7,
maximum concurrent sessions. Yes, maximum concurrent sessions. This is the one.
30,000.
This is for premium service
This is
tier.
for payment.
So we have selected base standard one, right? Standard service tier, which is S4. S4 is more. We have selected S1, I think. What was the size we have selected? Okay, let us choose no. S0. S0 maximum concurrent and connections is 600. This is the maximum.
600.
Huh? So this is the maximum concurrent connection which you have for your SQL server, which is 600. Okay. So for S0 it is 600, and S1 it is 900, and for S2 is 1200.
Correct.
So if you increase your pricing tier of your SQL database from standard to premium, so your DTU will get increased, your database size will get increased, and your maximum concurrent connection will also get increased.
Okay.
Okay. So everything will get increased actually. Okay. Okay. So now let us go and select the Elastic pool as no. Okay. And this is the DTU which we have configured, and I'll just select one here. Okay. Done. And free test VM-RG review, and then just create. Okay. So now this is getting created. So this will take some time to get created. Okay. So once this is done, okay. So okay, I think now this is getting created. So let it create. SQL database. Still not created. Okay. Because this is the first time, right? So if you try to create any resource for the first time in your subscription, so it will take some time, because in backend it has to register all your resource providers, and then it has to start provisioning your resource. So it will take some time for the first time, only for the first time.
Oh, okay.
If you see the replication, see the 44 minutes ago, still it's replicating.
This is still replicated.
But the SQL database got created. Okay, so I think it got created, right? So SQL database. Okay, now it got created. Okay, if you see,
Yes.
okay, SQL database got created. Okay, and the database name is SQL test SQL database 01. Okay, the SQL server name is this. Okay, so if I go to the SQL database, here you can see SQL database, and here it says server name. Okay, so by using this link, which is .database.windows.net, you can connect to the SQL database. So that means you have to use the SQL server to connect using your SSMS tool. Okay, and then you can access your database from there, this database. Okay, from here also you can go to the SQL server, which is a SQL server option. Okay, and then you can see your databases, SQL databases. So this is a database. Now what we will do, we'll create one more database. I'll show you. Add. Okay, and then I'll use same resource group. It's fine. Okay, and what was that? Test SQL database 02. Okay, and the SQL server by default it got selected. No need to. I won't create a new one. We'll just go with the existing one only, and the DTU is also S0. It's fine. Okay, and then review and create. Now this is getting created. What I'll do, I'll go to the databases. I'll just try to refresh it.
Getting created.
So once this is done, one more database will get added here. Okay, and SQL server name, the server name will be same, which is test SQL server 0123. Okay, so once this is done, it will take some time. Come on, SQL database, refresh. Done. Okay,
Yes.
you can see database name is different. Test SQL database 01, test SQL database 02, and your SQL server is same.
Same.
Okay,
Right.
so now I just went into SQL database, right? Here you can see SQL servers as well. Got it, right? You can see SQL server. So if I select SQL server, I have only one SQL server, and the status is available and the location is West Europe. So if I select my SQL server, okay, I can see what all databases are available on this SQL server, under this SQL server. I'll simply go to SQL databases. If I go to the SQL databases, it will give me the list of SQL databases which are under this SQL server. SQL server 01 and 02. Okay. Even from here, I can create a SQL database. From here also, we can create a SQL database directly from your SQL server. So if I try to create one more database, like if I'll go to this, I'll select this, okay, and I'll go here, I'll go to new database, I'll provide the database name as 03 and blank, fine, target server which is 0123, elastic pool no, and pricing tier yes, fine, okay. Well, once this is done, and if I go to the SQL database, one more database will get added here, and if I go to services and databases, here also one more database will get added.
Right.
So here what we are doing, we are creating multiple databases under only one SQL server. That is possible. Also, if you want, you can create individual SQL server for each and every database. That is also possible.
There is also.
You can create multiple databases under one SQL server, or you can create each or individual SQL server for each and every database. So that is also possible. It's up to you. So if you wanted to connect your SQL server only once, and if you wanted to access all your databases, because all your databases belongs to one project, then you can create multiple databases on different use cases, and then you can create only one SQL server, which is project specific. And if you have multiple projects, then we should not go for multiple databases and one SQL server, because other project users cannot access other projects, right? So in that case, you have to create individual database SQL server for each and every database.
Correct.
Okay. So here,
Okay.
same. All the SQL server names, everything is same here, and the present here is here. If you notice, if I go to the SQL database, I won't be seeing any pause or stop and deallocated like we see for the virtual machines, right? If I go into my virtual machine, I go to virtual machine, this VM. If you see connect, start, restart, stop, so these kind of options I have for virtual machine. But for SQL database, no. Copy, restore, export, set, delete, connect. That's it. It says online. I cannot make this offline. I cannot do that. There is no way to make your SQL database offline. Your charge, you will be charged for each and every usage. If you're not using, you will charge. If you are using also, you'll be charged for. Okay. So in the same way, we have network security group in Azure Virtual Machine, right? So to access any database, you have to set firewall rules. Like you have to allow the firewall rule. So no one will access this SQL server. So if you wanted to access, or if you wanted to connect the SQL server, you have to use this link first, and then the credentials which we have provided. If you remember, we have provided a credentials, right? One username.
Username.
Here, this is a username, and the password I've entered one password. So that username and password you have to provide. I think SSMS is not there here on this VM. SSMS. No, I don't have SSMS. We have to install it. I'll show you how to connect it in the next session. So I'll show you how to connect the SQL database and SQL data warehouse as well. Because we have to download. It will be around 2 GB of data. The 2 GB is file, setup file, which is SSMS. You have to download and install. So after installing, you have to connect the SQL server, and then you can access. You can see all these databases in SQL server. If you connect your SQL server by using you can see everything.
We can install database tool as well, like open source dweaver tool. So using that also we can establish a SQL server connection.
Yes. If it supports this SQL server,
yes, it
because
supports.
I think SQL server will use 443 or 448. What is the port number? The SQL server. I don't remember exactly. 443, right? Absolutely. Yes. So 443. So if that application or if that tool supports 443, then it's fine. You will be able to connect to the SQL database.
Yes, right.
You can do that. So simply use this link in your SQL server name, username, your Azure, which is this one, and the password I'll tell you. Enter. Then you will be able to see all your databases here. Everything. Each and every database you can see it here. Okay. So here, if you want to add, and also what we did actually, we created a blank database. Okay, we have created a blank database. In that database, you don't have any tables, you don't have any data, right? So if you want to add any data, or if you wanted to query any data, so all these queries, so SQL queries, you can execute SQL queries, right? So when you log into SSMS, you have to execute SQL queries to visualize, to see your data in the database, right? So here also in portal, you have a query editor. Okay, so in query editor, I have to use the credentials which I have configured while creating this SQL database, and connect what it says. Login client with IP address is not allowed to access a server. To enable access, use the Windows Azure Management Portal or run setup. So this IP is not enabled as of now. So what I'll do, I'll just copy this. Okay. And then I'll go here and set firewall rule. And is this the same IP or a different IP? This is the same IP. So I'll just allow, should be there.
This is the IP of what? IP of your machine.
This is the IP of my virtual machine. My virtual machine IP address. Correct.
Yeah.
I think it's public IP. Public IP address of my VM 23.101.79 and 135. Public IP of this virtual machine. Okay.
Public IP of this.
So
Okay.
Set firewall. Go here. SQL server. Allow. Save. Updated successfully. Done. And now I'll go to one of the database. Connected. Okay. So now it's connected. If you try to access, you won't be able to do that because your public IP is different. So you can log into your Azure subscription, and then you can go to query editor, which is in preview state. And then if you try to log in with this credentials, the Azure is a username and password helping you, but you won't be able to log in. It says like your IP address is not allowed here because your public IP has to be allowed here. Then only you will be able to connect to the database here. Then you can query. I'm not good at SQL query, but I cannot show you how to query this. So from here you can query everything. So you can see tables, okay, and you can see everything here. Okay, so if you wanted to add any table here, you can query, and you can put some SQL query here, and then you can add. And same will get replicate in your SSMS as well. So if you do from SSMS, it will replicate here, and if you do changes here, then it will replicate in your SQL database if you connect to any other tool, maybe SSMS or any Power BI desktop. Because that is only a tool. Technically, that is a tool actually. So that is a medium to connect. The main SQL database resides in your Azure portal. If you do any changes here or there, it will replicate here only. The only way is you are using SSMS as a tool and you are using Power BI or using the other tool which you have mentioned. That is only a tool or the way to connect to your database. But everything will get replicated on the database in Azure only. Okay, so by this way you can do that, but if we leave this database like this, then we will be charged because there is no way to stop or pause your database from Azure portal or anywhere. You cannot do that.
Okay. So in that case, do we need to delete these databases or what?
Right. That is the only option you have. Because you have to delete. If you want, you can take a backup of the database and then you can delete it.
Delete it.
Okay, so because currently, if you feel that your database is not used, but you want to have the database to be backed up, then you can initiate a backup of your database. Okay, back up your database, put it in the storage account, then delete your SQL database. Okay, then if you need your actual database, then restore your database from the storage account. That you can do. Simply like backup, put it in the storage account. Okay, delete your database. If you need your database back, then create a database by using that data which you have stored on the storage account. That you can do. You can put it in the storage account or you can put it in your local desktop as well. That you can do. Okay, so I hope this enable option is completed, but still it's enabling. This is the first time, right? So this is taking some time. Okay, so here firewall rule, you can set it at the database level. Okay, coming to the firewall rules. Okay, so if you see at the database level, you can set firewall rule. Like firewall rule, for example, test name, and the IP address is 10.10.10.10, and this is the same IP address. Okay, and let's just save it. Done. And if you see, only for the database 01, I have enabled test name 10.10.10. This is my IP address, only for the testing purpose. Okay. So if I go to database 03, and if I go to set firewall rule, okay, and here, what did I do? Did I enable the SQL server? It should not replicate actually. Replicating completely. It will take some time, I guess. Set firewall rule. This is at the test name. Okay. But anyway, if it reflect, but still you won't be able to access, because the actual process is, if you wanted to enable firewall rule, you have to enable at the SQL server. Okay. Because if you enable at the SQL server, okay, which is firewall rule. Okay, currently my firewall rule, which is test name 10.10.10, right? So this is a test name, and IP address is already 10. So I have enabled it. So that means if we get a request from this IP address, then only users can access the SQL server. Okay. So technically, if user access the SQL server, okay, then obviously they have to access the database which are present on the SQL server, right? Because SQL server is main. If you have full permission on your SQL server, then obviously you'll have full permission on the SQL databases, because SQL databases are residing on under the SQL server. You have permission on the SQL server. That means you'll have permission on the SQL databases as well, completely. If you have folder permission, you'll have full permission on the files as well. It's not like that you can exclude only one single file from that particular folder. Here also, if you have full permission on the SQL server, you have full permission on the databases as well. So going forward, if you wanted to enable, or if you want to access one user to connect to this SQL server, we have to go to SQL server here, and then go to firewall rules. Okay, then enable here. Put a name here, your name. Okay, and then your IP address, maybe 12.12. Something like that.
Okay.
Like this. Sorry. Okay, so your IP address and your end IP address as well. Okay, so in this way, you have to put your name and your start IP address and end IP address. So that means if I put like 12.2.2, this is the start and this is the end. So if you put like from 1 to 10, and if you get a request from that 1 to 10, then users can access the SQL server, and obviously they'll have full permission on the database. And not full permission, permission will have at the user level, which is Azure is our user in our case. So that user is the admin of that SQL server. So that user is the admin on that SQL server, and then he will have full permission on the databases as well. Okay.
So this IP could be any IP.
Public IP. It should be public IP only, not the private IP.
Okay. This is start IP and end IP.
Start IP and end IP should be a public IP only. Public IP of your
public IP address of,
because this is using.
Okay. Public IP. Okay. Public IP of.
Yes. If you type your what is my IP address in your internet browser, it will give you an IP address, right? So that IP.
Okay.
That is your IP, because here your connection, if you are initiating a connection from your laptop or maybe your desktop, that connection is going via internet. Your connection is going via internet. So via internet, it has to enable one public IP, because your public IP, it will have one public IP, right? So your desktop or your laptop or your ISP, your internet service provider will have one public IP. So that public IP you have to add here. So if you add your public IP, then If you get a request from that public IP, then only you will be able to connect to the virtual machine. Even though if you have your credentials, still you won't be able to connect because your public IP is not enabled in the Azure portal. It has to enable. This is by default actually. You got it, right? So because
Yes.
here the connection is going via internet. The complete connection is via internet only. Okay, so each and every user has to provide their public IP. Then we have to create a rule name and we have to provide start IP and end IP. Then only users can connect to the SQL server by using that database.windows.net, which is the SQL server name. Then they can log into the SQL databases and then they can do changes from there. Okay, so these are the databases which we have created. So if I try to delete the complete server, okay, so if I simply delete the database, okay, now what I'm doing, I'm going to delete the database 01. So only the database 01 will get deleted. Okay, so I'm simply deleting the database now. But if I try to delete the SQL server, okay, if I try to delete the SQL server, all the databases will get deleted. Because if I simply delete the SQL server, there is no use, right? Somewhere the databases has to be on the SQL server only. So without SQL server, there is no use. Databases will not be there, right? So SQL server is main. So if you delete SQL server, all your databases will get deleted. And there is no way to pause it. Your databases.
Right. Correct.
Databases, we cannot pause it. Okay, so SQL server, we can delete it. Okay, and then your databases, from here you can view all your databases. You can go, you can put it in. You can go and create a copy of your databases in any other SQL server. Like you can create one more SQL server and you can create a copy of your databases. So just taking your copy from one SQL server and creating another copy in another SQL server. It's like copy, one copy in one server and one database in one server and database 02 in another server. That you can do. Okay. So now, for now, I think we can stop now. So let me stop this.